The Book of Shadows is a game about love, loss, sacrifice, magic, and a pretty big cast of characters. The game starts off with you playing as Alex and his girlfriend Talia as they go caving for their anniversary. In the cave, they discover a strange book. Talia reads it, falls unconscious, and Alex rushes her to the hospital. There she awakens and, commanding a small army of skeletons, claims she is something known as the Shadow Lord. With nowhere left to run, Alex manages to cast a teleportation spell he found within the book and was transported from Earth to the world of Esteron. That's when things really start to get weird. The game has a strong, sweeping story and involves a lot of dedication to get through. My playthrough was nearly 40 hours and I didn't come close to doing all the side quests or finding the many secrets peppered throughout the game. The only issue is that some of it inevitably feels like filler. Couple that with the fact that each chapter starts and ends with some pretty hefty exposition dumps, and well, it can feel like a bit of a slog to get through at times. Still, when the action and story are moving, it's always at a brisk and entertaining pace. You tend to overlook some of the more long-winded moments. The only major issue I have with the game is the somewhat unforgiving nature of some of the boss fights. Instead of giving strong tells of massive attacks or skills incoming, the game assumes you will fail a few times as you learn the boss's pattern. This can make for some frustration as you think you may have a handle on things, only to find out you misread something and are now running back to the fight you just lost. Thankfully, those moments aren't often, but a lot seem to be located in the final chapter. Thankfully, there are no random encounters in the game, and you can escape from almost any battle. The only exception to this is that later on in the game you encounter these enemies called Shades, and they're pretty much invisible. But, it's according to the developer, they're not random, so whatever, I'll take it. There are turn 1 autocast skills, and some of these are absolutely OP. Once you can learn them, do it, and if you have that person in your party on turn 1, you get some pretty nice benefits. You're able to change the party and even equipment during combat. Not a lot of games allow this, and this game, it's actually built towards that, so don't be afraid to swap some things out if things aren't working. And my favorite part? All characters, even the dead ones, get experience. This is perfect for a large cast game because there are some parts where you will get split up and have to play as different party members. And if you have them all of an average equal level instead of some 20 below, then it makes things a lot easier. This game has a lot of exposition. Beginnings of chapters, ends of chapters, sometimes in the middle of a chapter. I would argue that a lot of it could either be trimmed down significantly or even removed entirely, and the game's story would not change for the worse. With the cast this big, the character abilities seem to be very similar with minimal variation beyond the this is a different element, and only a few characters kind of stand out as your major heavy hitters. Not all the characters have a strong voice within the story. And sometimes the cutscenes feel like they're giving everyone a turn, not because they have something meaningful to add to the moment, but just so that they aren't forgotten about. I will be the first to admit that I am not the most attentive player, and that a lot of the issues I was having while I played this game were pretty much my own fault, but the amount of buffs and debuffs to learn is insane. Basically, there are several pages of debuffs and buffs and their little icons that you either have to memorize or have on hand to know what the hell is going on. And a lot of the times I screwed up was because I didn't understand what the buffs meant, or the debuffs. The game does have a hefty price. Personally, I really don't mind it, but it does come in at $20 US, and that is a bit steep, even for a game of this size. Alright, this next point is a major spoiler, so skip ahead. I won't put the actual text on the screen, but you lose your gear and items. Everything. Twice. It's devastating, and even for a story reason, feels weak and annoying. Alright, folks. Is the Book of Shadows required reading, or is this a tome doomed to accumulate dust and act as a standing coaster on your coffee table? Major issues with some fights and the whole plethora of buffs and debuffs one must recognize aside, it is still a solid, fun, and enjoyable experience. The only main turnoff I can see for some would be the price. It's $20 for an RPG Maker game, and given the stigma with games of this type asking high prices, it's difficult to recommend it based on that alone. Thankfully, I don't subscribe to such notions. This was a labor of love, and the fact that even rushing through it, I still got almost 40 hours of gameplay, I mean, that's 50 cents an hour for pretty good entertainment. I say it's worth it. If it ever goes on sale, must buy. I'm HawkZombie. Thanks for listening.